They forgot the one day that made me feel like I existed. No calls, no texts, no awkward group message with balloons and confetti emojis. Nothing. Just silence. They told everyone I gave up, that I faded away by choice, that I was off the grid, as if pain could be labeled like that, casually, dismissively. They rewrote my story before I had a chance to live it. Not failure. Not even neglect. Something bigger, just not visible yet. I wasn't always this quiet. I used to be the one who remembered everyone's birthday. Cake. Confetti. The little details that made people feel known. I would memorize the date, the flavor, even the weird stuff like how my cousin Kelsey didn't like candles because they reminded her of funerals. And yet, when my day came around, nothing. Not even a whisper. It wasn't just a date on the calendar. It was a test I didn't realize I was taking until I failed it, until everyone failed it. Funny how absence can scream louder than presence. I stared at my phone until the battery gave up. Scrolled through feeds filled with smiling faces, balloons, weekend brunches captioned, "Birthday girl. Another year around the sun. So blessed to celebrate with my tribe." But I spent the day in a laundromat, folding other people's forgotten socks and trying not to cry into a warm dryer sheet. You ever feel like the world rotated without you? Like your name was edited out of the script the night before the show? That was me. On my birthday. But here's the part no one expected. What they didn't see coming is that while the people closest to me forgot, the entire city would soon remember. And not just remember, celebrate. My name is Ava Reynolds. I'm 29 years old, and I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is the story of the loneliest birthday I've ever had, and how it turned into a citywide echo of everything I once gave to others. A story of silence that became a song, of being forgotten, only to be remembered louder than ever before. I was always the responsible one. That's what my mom used to say at every holiday dinner. Thank God for Ava. Always keeps things together. At school, I was the kid with perfect attendance. The planner. The girl who remembered deadlines and birthdays. The type who brought an extra pen to class just in case someone else forgot theirs. My parents wanted me to be a pediatrician, and I wanted to make them proud. So I checked all the boxes. AP classes, pre-med, volunteer hours at the local hospital. I even worked part-time at a cupcake shop to pay for MCAT prep books. The plan was airtight. But sometimes, even the most polished plans don't account for people slowly breaking inside. I didn't fall all at once. It started quietly. I would stare at textbooks and forget what I just read. I'd wake up with a chest full of dread, like I was already behind before I even left the bed. I kept pushing because quitting wasn't an option. But I wasn't living. I was just maintaining, like an engine that keeps running even though the oil's gone dry. One day, in the middle of an organic chemistry lab, I just walked out, left my goggles on the bench. Didn't say goodbye. It wasn't dramatic. No tears. No anger. Just a soft silence. Like I'd finally stopped pretending. I didn't go back. When I told my parents I wasn't continuing med school, my mom blinked like I'd spoken in another language. My dad didn't say anything. He just nodded once and turned back to the TV. For a few months, they made excuses for me. She's just taking a break. She's reevaluating her path. But the whispers started too. At Thanksgiving, my aunt whispered to another relative. She used to be so driven. At church, someone asked my mom, "Is Ava still in school?" And my mom forced a smile. "We don't really talk about that anymore." Like I was a chapter they'd rather skip over. I moved out of my apartment and into a cheaper place, a converted basement with no windows, a mattress on the floor, and a sink that dripped like it was ticking down the seconds to something worse. I got a job as a receptionist at a nonprofit. Minimum wage, long hours, but it kept the lights on and gave me somewhere to be. I tried not to resent the silence. Tried not to miss the messages that used to flood in when I passed a test or won an award. Because now there were none. No one asked how I was doing. No one said, "Happy birthday" that year either. I posted nothing. Said nothing. Watched as people celebrated other people, tagged them in posts, uploaded carousels of filtered memories. But my name? Not even in a comment. It hurt. More than I'd ever admit out loud. But what hurt more was realizing that I had built my whole identity on being useful. On being the helper, the overachiever, the solid one. And when I wasn't that anymore, when I couldn't be, I just disappeared. No one noticed. And I began to believe maybe I wasn't worth noticing. I started over. In every way that matters. But no one was watching. The first thing I did was rearrange my apartment. It sounds small, insignificant. But when your world has unraveled, even stacking books by color can feel like resistance. I pushed my mattress against the far wall, dragged in a second-hand desk I found on Facebook Marketplace, and taped sticky notes above it with quotes that didn't quite inspire me yet, but might someday. Then I signed up for a free local workshop on digital literacy. Not to attend, to volunteer. It was called ClickBridge, a small community program that helps senior citizens learn how to use smartphones, email, and video calling. Every Thursday night, 10 to 15 older adults would gather in a quiet room at the public library, clutching their iPhones like they were ticking bombs. My first night, I was assigned to a woman named Marlene, 74, recently widowed. She wore a velvet headband, deep red lipstick, and a sweater that said, "I'm retired, not expired." She stared at her phone with full-body skepticism. "This machine hates me," she muttered, shoving it across the table like it had insulted her grandchild. I laughed. It was the first genuine laugh I'd had in months. "No, it's just waiting for you to trust it." She squinted at me, then raised an eyebrow. "You always talk in riddles?" "Only on Thursdays," I said. Over the next few weeks, I taught her how to save contacts, how to adjust the font size, how to download Zoom. But the real lesson happened one night, when she finally joined a video call with her son in Portland. He had tried helping her from afar, but she always said no. "Too complicated," she told him. But that evening, in a quiet corner of the library, Marlene's screen lit up with his face. And next to him, his newborn baby. Her first grandchild. Marlene's breath caught. She didn't say anything for a full 10 seconds. Just touched the screen like she could reach through it. Her hands shook. Tears welled up, but didn't fall. Then she whispered, "You brought my baby into my living room." It hit me so hard I had to turn away. It was small. It didn't make headlines. But it mattered. That night, walking home in the cold with my hands stuffed in my coat pockets, I thought about the word useful. Maybe it didn't have to look like awards, degrees, or big titles. Maybe it looked like Marlene smiling through a pixelated screen. Maybe it was this. ClickBridge soon asked if I could help with their email newsletter. Then their event flyers. Then their scheduling system. By spring, I was redesigning their website and helping them apply for a local grant. It still didn't pay much, but my days had rhythm again. Purpose wasn't loud. It wasn't glamorous. It showed up in the form of paper coffee cups on folding tables and thank you notes scribbled in shaky handwriting. The more I gave, the less invisible I felt. Not because others saw me, but because I was finally seeing myself again. It started slowly. A couple more volunteers joined ClickBridge. Then a retired marketing exec donated funds for extra tablets. We moved from the library basement to a donated co-working space downtown. By summer, we weren't just helping seniors log into Facebook anymore. We were onboarding over 1,200 older adults per month across 11 partner locations. We built a digital curriculum called First Click with modules on everything from telehealth to mobile banking. Our feedback score sat at 98%, and our email open rate? 78%. Higher than some Fortune 500 companies. I wasn't just teaching anymore. I was running operations, designing workshops, managing people. We had local press features, partnerships with retirement communities, and even a pilot program with the city's aging services department. I built an internal dashboard to track success metrics. In 6 months, we helped reconnect over 2,000 families. We were making an impact. I knew it. The numbers didn't lie. But at home, at family dinners on the rare occasion I went, I was still just figuring things out. Once, at my cousin's engagement party, I overheard my aunt whisper to her husband, Teaching old folks to click buttons? Real noble work. She chuckled. He didn't correct her. At Christmas, when my brother got a promotion at his consulting firm, there were champagne toasts and speeches. When I mentioned we'd won a grant from the city, my mom blinked slowly and said,
"Oh,
"That's nice, honey. Are you still doing that part-time volunteer thing?"
part-time."
Volunteer. I wanted to correct her. Tell her about the KPIs, the strategic planning meetings, the testimonials I kept in a folder labeled "Read when invisible." But I didn't, because part of me had accepted it. That in their eyes, unless I wore a lab coat or had an office in a glass building downtown, I'd never quite measure up. Still, I kept building, kept showing up, kept planting seeds in silence. There were days I questioned if it mattered. If recognition only came with prestige and titles. If I had traded visibility for meaning, and if that trade-off was even fair. But then I'd get a letter like the one from Helen, age 83, who said, "You didn't just teach me how to use a phone. You gave me my daughter back." That kind of gratitude doesn't go viral. It doesn't trend.
But it stays with you.
Long after the applause fades. Or never comes at all.
I still remembered that birthday.
The one everyone forgot. Still wondered if they'd remember this year. But I stopped hoping for it. Stopped expecting balloons or cake. Because I had found something steadier than celebration. I had found myself.
It was 2 weeks before my birthday.
I'd already decided I wouldn't mention it. No Facebook post. No text reminders. Just another Thursday on the calendar. That morning, I was speaking at a community roundtable hosted by a local tech incubator. They had invited small nonprofit leaders to share their stories. 5-minute talks, no slides, just truth. I wore a blazer I found on clearance and brushed my hair back in a low knot. I wasn't nervous. Not because I was confident, but because I was used to being overlooked. When it was my turn, I stepped up to the mic and shared how ClickBridge began with confused faces and trembling hands. How it turned into more than teaching. How it was about restoring dignity. How one small connection could ripple into reunions, healing, closure. I kept it short. No dramatic ending. Just a quiet line. Sometimes you give people the power to click send, and what they send changes everything. There was polite applause. One woman gave me a thumbs up. Afterward, I walked to the refreshment table and reached for a paper cup of lukewarm coffee. A man stood beside me, mid-30s, suit slightly wrinkled, kind eyes. He held a half-eaten granola bar in one hand and a phone in the other. "Hey," he said, "ClickBridge, right?" I nodded. "My fiancé's grandma uses it. She lives in a senior center in Bloomington." That was one of our earliest partner sites. I smiled. "That's amazing. What's her name?"
Miriam.
88. "She's obsessed with you guys." I laughed. "That makes me so happy to hear." But then his expression changed, softened into something deeper, more personal. "You know," he said, "I don't think you understand how much it meant to her." I tilted my head. "Tell me." She didn't know how to join Zoom calls. Missed my fiancé's graduation. Missed our engagement announcement. But then one of your volunteers taught her. And now every Sunday she calls. She's part of everything again. He paused. Then looked at me closer. Actually, he squinted.
"Wait.
Are you Ava?" I blinked. "Yes." His whole face lit up. "Holy crap. You're Ava Reynolds." He stepped back like he was seeing someone famous. "I've literally heard about you. From Miriam, from the program director. I thought you were, like, older." I laughed. "Older? No, I mean, just more corporate. You know? Like some executive behind the scenes." "I'm mostly behind a Chromebook and a cup of gas station coffee." He shook his head. "No. Seriously. You changed her life. And mine, too. Because when she joined our last family Zoom call, she said something to me that she hadn't said since I was a kid." He looked away for a second, then back at me. "She said she was proud of me." My breath caught. I didn't even realize how much I missed hearing that until she said it. "And she wouldn't have without you." The room blurred a little, from the corners of my eyes to the center of my chest. I wanted to say something poetic, something humble, but I could only manage. Thank you. He held out his hand and grinned. Just keep doing what you're doing, even if you think no one sees it. Then he was gone. Back to his group, back to his conversation. But I stood there, rooted to the floor, coffee cooling in my hands. I didn't post about it. Didn't rush home to write a long thread. I just sat on the bus ride back in silence, watching the city pass like a gentle film reel. And that night, when I walked into my apartment, the lights flicked on like always. No confetti. No surprise. But I felt seen. Not because I demanded attention, but because the truth walked in by itself and refused to stay quiet. My birthday came, just like the last one. Quiet, ordinary. No balloons. No group texts. No phone calls from family. But that morning, something small changed. I woke up to a card slipped under my apartment door. No name. Just a simple envelope that said Ava in neat cursive. Inside was a note on floral stationery. Thank you for giving me a reason to wake up early on Sundays again. Happy birthday, my dear.
Love.
Marlene. She remembered. I sat down on the floor with my coffee in one hand and that card in the other, and just let the moment settle. Later that day, I opened my inbox. Among the junk and automated updates was an email from my older brother. Subject line: Been thinking about you. We hadn't really talked in a while. Not deeply, anyway. His message was short. Saw someone post about ClickBridge on LinkedIn. Didn't know it had grown that much. I guess I never really asked. But I'm proud of you, Ava. Really. Let me know if you're free for dinner this week. Just us. No emojis. No overthinking. But honest. I didn't cry. I didn't replay the moment over and over. I just read it once. Then archived it. I didn't need to frame it. Didn't need to post it online. I just kept it. Later that week, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off a few things. My mom was in the kitchen, cutting fruit. She looked up and said, "Oh, your father and I watched that little video from the tech incubator event. You spoke well." I nodded. Thanks. Then she added, quietly, almost to herself, "I didn't realize how much of it you built. That was all." But it landed softer than I expected. No fanfare. Just a shift. Like a door creaking open after years of being stuck. For the first time, I didn't need them to clap.
Didn't need the spotlight.
Because peace doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just sits with you. In the silence after a kind word. In the steam of your morning coffee. In the smile of someone who sees you now, not who they hoped you'd become. I don't walk around with a chip on my shoulder anymore. I don't measure my worth in titles or praise. Because I've seen what invisible love can do. How quiet purpose can echo louder than applause. I still run ClickBridge. We've expanded to 5 cities now. I hired a small team. We meet every Monday morning at 9 a.m. with bagels and budget spreadsheets. It's not perfect. There are days I want to quit. But there are more days I don't. And I think that's the real victory. Not proving people wrong. Not making them pay attention. Just waking up and knowing you're where you're supposed to be. It wasn't pride. It was peace. If you've ever felt invisible, this story was for you. If you've ever sat through your own birthday in silence. If you've ever done something beautiful and had no one clap. If you've ever whispered, "I matter," just to remember how your voice sounds, then you're not alone. I used to think visibility was the prize. That if no one noticed, it didn't count. But I've learned that the world doesn't always applaud the right moments. Sometimes it doesn't clap at all. But that doesn't mean you're not becoming something sacred. Something strong. Something real. I used to think my story would only begin when someone handed me a spotlight. But it turns out, my story began the moment I chose to grow, even when no one was watching. To the quiet builders. To the unseen helpers. To the ones who make life softer for someone else while carrying their own unspoken ache. You are the miracle. Your impact might never trend. It might never be wrapped in confetti or go viral. But someone out there is breathing easier because of you. And they might not know your name, but they know your kindness. So, if no one said it to you lately, I see you. I honor your effort. And I believe you're doing better than you think. You don't have to go louder. You don't have to prove yourself louder. Sometimes the softest light reaches the furthest. Sometimes what you build in the dark glows even brighter when the morning comes. So, where are you watching from? What's your story? What have you built in silence? Tell me below because someone like you might need to hear it. This channel exists for the quiet victories, for second chances, for people who dared to start again when no one believed they could. I'm Ava, and this was my story. But I know, somewhere out there, yours is unfolding, too. Thank you for being here. More stories are coming. Real ones. Like yours. See you soon.